Jeff, I need more kazoo. Get more kazoo. Okay, everybody ready? Ready? Let's go. Oh, hi. I'm Amy Van Dyke. I'm the Curator of Art and Exhibitions at Museum of the Bible. But today, I'm the director of our curatorial Zoom band. I guess you could say we're all just a little bit lonesome. One of my favorite exhibitions from this time of year is a collection of bronze sculptures by Gibson of the Stations of the Cross, a commemoration of the 14 events in the last hours of Jesus' life. These moments are of the passion of Christ. This is his suffering toward the end of his life as he made his way to the cross. It's traditionally a Catholic event where these stations would be set up around the interior of a church, and then a Christian pilgrim could virtually take this walk along his sorrowful way, or the Via Dolorosa. As early as the 4th century, Christians were going on a pilgrimage or going to Jerusalem to go through this walk, to follow along the path that Jesus took during the last hours of his life. And over time, medieval churches started to implement this type of virtual pilgrimage inside their churches, which is how we come to have the modern idea of the Stations of the Cross. If you walk into a Catholic church, you'll see these stations positioned around the interior of the church. And it's meant for someone to go in there and walk through and prayerfully stop at each location and think of those events in the last hours of Jesus' life, for those that can't actually go and walk this Via Dolorosa, or the Way of Sorrow, in Jerusalem itself. So what Gibbs Singleton did was to create his own interpretation of these stations. And he did so in a way that reflects his own style. And his style was one that drew heavily upon his influence in Western sculpture work, similar to Remington. He really had an affinity for Western bronze work. But he took it a bit of a step further, and his figures were more abstract in their representation, in a way that he calls an emotional realism. And in this way, he wanted to connect with the viewer, not just in a physical sense, but a connection to the soul as well. And as you were to walk through these 14 stations of Jesus' last hours, you were to get a sense of his emotional state as you went through there. So, for example, if you look at Station 1, which is titled Judgment, you see Jesus bound before Pilate. He's on trial, and his eyes look up at the viewer, at you, imploring you to look at his state and think of your role in that even, and to think of, as Singleton said it when he described this piece, he said, Jesus is saying, don't you understand who I am? As he's looking up and imploring you during this time. Station 3 shows a Roman guard standing over Jesus in the action, in the moment of actually bringing the whip down on Jesus as he's down on the ground. And in choosing this dramatic moment, this is the moment that Singleton decided to use, not after the whipping has happened or not before, but right in the middle of it. It's that drama that really brings out the emotion in the scene. And Jesus is fallen, and he's broken, and he's beaten on the floor. Another one in Station 12 that we see, this is the actual crucifixion. And this moment is shown with a lot of that heightened emotional realism, where you definitely know what's happening. This is Jesus on the cross. This is a scene that most people are familiar with. But he's shown in this emaciated way. The limbs, the arms and the legs are long and strung out like he's been hanging there for a while. So it really does grasp at your heartstrings there, to be the viewer looking in on that. But what Gibbs Singleton did with his Stations of the Cross is he actually went one step further, and he added a 15th station to the traditional 14. This one he titles Redemption. And in this one he shows a resurrected Jesus who's no longer in the tomb, which is the 14th station. He shows Jesus now resurrected. He's taller. He is looking up this time. And instead of wearing the crown of thorns on his head, there's now a halo surrounding his head, and the crown of thorns is in his hand down at the side. He's no longer subject to it. He's no longer bound by that in that moment, but he is now resurrected, and past that. So that was a choice that Gibbs Singleton made there to add his own artistic interpretation to the Stations of the Cross, and really shows you his own faith journey in there too, to really emphasize that 15th point of redemption that he really wanted to show in there. This is another of my favorite exhibitions for this time of the year, and one that we love to have up during the Easter season. And hopefully one day you'll get to come and see it, and if not, you can see it here in our own virtual pilgrimage here at Museum of the Bible.